From the endless forest of the north to the shimmering waters of the Great Lakes, the rail trails and fields and bustling urban centers, this is Cycling Canada Episode 5, Ontario. It's my first full day on the Trans-Canada Highway. It's nice to be in the home province, some home terrain. There's a beautiful sunset. It's so nice to be back in the Canadian Shield. Lots of rocks and lakes and trees. The first days of Ontario were spent on long, desolate stretches of highway. Though not completely devoid of traffic, I was surrounded otherwise by vast expanses of wild lands and the rugged beauty of the Canadian Shield. 50 kilometers from the closest town, I experienced a serious bike mechanical when my crankside bottom bracket bearings blew out. I have unceremoniously stuffed the bottom bracket with a tofu mango peel. Determined to cross the country completely by pedal, I improvised a fix and carried on into the night to the town of Ignis. Taking a day to rest here, the townsfolk came together to help provide a more solid fix and get me moving again. I crossed into the Eastern time zone and also over the watershed boundary from Arctic to Atlantic. From here, it's all downhill. Despite being on the Trans-Canada Highway, this is one of the most remote sections of the ride across Canada. It was truly such a serene experience, though, to have long days of cycling through the wilderness, capped off with nights under billions of stars. On the final push down towards the Great Lakes, a quick pit stop brought me to the impressive Kakabeka Falls and its roaring curtains of water. Continuing on to Thunder Bay, I was greeted with views of the sleeping giant and, at long last, the glistening waters of Lake Superior. Heading now towards the rugged north coast of Superior, I traveled inland again, away from the lakeshore. Rugged cliffs lined the roadside as I climbed and descended the rolling terrain of the Canadian Shield. Then it was through Nipigon, and eventually back down towards the lake. The highway carved a path between bays, winding over rolling hills all the way. On the rocky lakeshore near Rossport, I spent a lovely night camped under the Milky Way again, soaking in the peace and calm of this quiet bay. This section of the journey north of Lake Superior was one of true magnificence. Waterfalls roared near the road, rocky cliffs towered above wild rivers, and serene beaches awaited in the town of Marathon. This beach camp was so incredibly beautiful, I spent 2 nights here, soaking in the splendor and marveling at the sunsets and the stars. Before departing from this heavenly spot, of course a quick swim was necessary, in a natural infinity pool-style lagoon in the cold waters of Superior. With rocks, lakes, and trees to keep me company, I traversed through the endless expanses of wilderness and to the town of White River. I was welcomed into the town of Wawa by the infamous giant Wawa goose. And of course, I couldn't resist another opportunity for a beautiful beach camp down in Michipicoten, back once again on the shores of the lake. Here I found happiness amongst patches of wild blueberries, views of rushing waterfalls, and iconic landscapes made famous by the group of 7 painters. Although now well traveled by vehicles, these sections of highway are long and remote, often with 100 kilometers between resupply points, as is the case heading into Lake Superior Provincial Park. One spot not to miss here is the Agawa Pictographs, a cliff containing centuries-old indigenous paintings, with the most notable being the Great Lynx Mishipeshi. I spent one rainy night in the park. The next day, blue skies returned, and after a quick swim, it was back to hill climbing and riding on quiet highway between bays of bright blue water. On the road into Sault Ste. Marie, I passed the halfway point of the Trans-Canada Highway. This would also be roughly the halfway point of my own bikepacking journey across Canada. It was such a relief here to finally be done with the long sections of the busy Trans-Canada Highway. Rolling down into the Sault, I enjoyed views of a wonderful creek system along the way while watching busy beavers perfect their dams and homes. Following along the riverfront in the Sault, I found myself wild camping on a beautiful little hidden beach just outside of the city center. From this point, I was now following along the Great Lakes Waterfront Trail. The first stop was a short little loop on the Ojibwe Trail, where I took a few hours to ride just a couple kilometers, stopping to enjoy numerous small moments in nature along the way. Following back roads along forests, fields, and farms, the waterfront trail here was a really spectacular and peaceful ride. Deciding to separate from the TCT route here, I turned to head south through Espanola. I found a surprise rail trail here, which was definitely a slower ride than the highway and a bit bumpy for touring bikes, but well worth it for the peace and views. Coming to the blue waters of Lake Huron, I crossed the Little Current Swing Bridge and arrived on the island of Manitoulin. Here I spent a couple nights hosted by some wonderful people and reconnected with a cycle touring friend. I spent a day hiking up the Cup and Saucer Trail to see the Manitoulin extension of the Niagara Escarpment. This rock escarpment extends several thousand kilometers in a horseshoe shape through the Great Lakes, and is the same geological formation that far down the watershed forms Niagara Falls. Manitoulin is an incredibly idyllic and beautiful place. The largest freshwater island in the world, it is culturally rich, home to a 50% indigenous population, and is part of the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe people. Getting off the island, I took a beautiful ferry ride on the Chichiman Ferry, which led through the sunset and to the town of Tobermory at the head of the Bruce Peninsula. This location in Fathom 5 National Marine Park is famous both for its crystal clear waters and its shipwrecks. At several locations in the park, it's possible to snorkel and dive to see dozens of scuttled and sunk boats. That evening, I pushed the bike out to the shores of Lake Huron for a beautiful wild camp under the stars and moon. Honestly, this was a pretty ridiculous spot to put a mattress, but it worked and was oh so beautiful. Winding down the Bruce Peninsula, the Great Lakes waterfront trail followed glorious backroads, while on the east side, the waters of Georgian Bay shone beautifully blue, while the white cliffs of the Niagara Escarpment towered above. I passed through the town of Wyerton, famous for Wyerton Willie, a long-running legacy of same-named spring prediction groundhogs. Through Owen Sound, the trail continued to follow back roads. The sparred owl appeared after I'd taken a wrong turn down a trail. Thank you, wise forest owl, for your beautiful presence and setting me back in the right direction. On Splendid Rail Trail once again, I passed the tourist draws of Blue Mountain, and then it was on to Wasaga Beach. Before heading away from the waters of Lake Huron, I enjoyed one last opportunity to watch the beautiful sunset over Georgian Bay. Lovely trail led into the countryside here, and I rode out to spend a few nights at a friend's place in Washago. From here I traveled southbound through Orillia, the home of celebrated late Canadian singer Gordon Lightfoot. The waters of Lake Simcoe sparkled in the sunshine as I passed through the city of Barrie, enjoying the slices of life seen along its waterfront trail. Wild camping is not too challenging off the rail trails here. Small patches of forest provide peaceful refuge for the night, and the sounds of insects and creeks are a true treat to wake up to. All the rail trails here I found to be great quality riding. Surfaced most frequently with crushed lime gravel, they're smooth, fast, and well graded, while passing through the idyllic countryside of the Golden Horseshoe. The first completed section of the Trans-Canada Trail is found here, as well as the Cheltenham Badlands, a small but immensely beautiful ancient seabed. As I split off from the TCT to shortcut to Toronto, massive thunderstorms began to generate in the sky. Successfully dodging a few, I made it safely through the connecting roads and onto the pathways in Brampton. But the storms unleashed their torrents of water behind me. In certain spots this day, over 200 millimeters of rain fell in just a few hours, and serious flooding began to overtake the trail system. This is the Etobicoke Creek Trail in Brampton, which is now just the Etobicoke River. A quick little escape from the creek, and I was past Pearson Airport in the night, on a mission to make downtown Toronto. For a whirlwind day, I stayed with and made new friends, soaking in the energy of Canada's largest city and one of the most multicultural cities in the world. Following again along the Great Lakes waterfront trail, it was soon back to pockets of nature amongst the suburban sprawl beneath the Scarborough Bluffs. I passed quickly through Rouge National Urban Park, the first and currently only national urban park in Canada. The humid late August days led to more late afternoon thunderstorms, but this time I wasn't so lucky to avoid getting caught in the rain. I had no complaints about getting just slightly wet, and it was off to leave the sprawl outside Ajax and camp behind a surprisingly peaceful parking lot next to the 407. Most mornings I love to take it slow and easy for the start, enjoying zigzagging trails through the woods and lots of filming before putting the distance down on rail trail in the afternoon. From the town of Uxbridge began a long series of connected rail trails that would lead all the way to the end of Ontario. The Beaver River Trail traversed incredible causeways through undisturbed wetlands, while the Kawartha Trans-Canada Trail led through forest and across the iconic Dubs Trestle Bridge. In Peterborough, I stopped to see the nearly 20-meter-high lift lock, the highest of its kind in the world. Why a raccoon would choose to hang out here, though, I can't explain. With of course no traffic, these rail trails were truly lovely to ride into the night, and with much more pleasant temperatures than during the day. East of the town of Campbellford, the Northumberland and Hastings County trails allowed ATVs, and unfortunately suffered as such from loose gravel and uncomfortable washboarding. But in rural southern Ontario, there's of course always another option for route, and country roads made for pleasant riding into the evening sun. Turning south at Sharbet Lake, it was now onto the K&P Trail, which was extremely well surfaced and very lovely riding. Listening to the haunting call of loons in the distance and the quiet buzzing of insects in the evening air, it was now on to the Cataraqui Trail. I spent my last night camping in Ontario at Chaffee's Loch. It was quite a special moment, as I'd spent much time as a kid camping here and canoeing the local lakes and rivers. On my final day of cycling through Ontario, the grass and gravel Cataraqui Trail turned back north towards Ottawa, and stints on the Ottawa Valley Recreational Trail and Carleton Place Trailway led on and into the nation's capital. On familiar bike paths next to the river, I arrived to my hometown of Ottawa. This wasn't the end of the cross-Canada journey, but it was a time to rest and reconnect with family, while enjoying the sights and sounds of the wonderful city of Ottawa, and reveling in the completion of having traveled across Ontario.